Welcome back to Psychology Applied to Work. This is lecture 41, Advertising. All right, we are on the last of the book here. So this is the last part of chapter 15, the last chapter. Recall that in lecture 40, we talked about consumer psychology. Specifically, we got into different types of research methods like surveys and polls and focus groups. We talked about motivation and we talked about observation, and then we dug into consumer behavior a little bit. And today we're going to finish the chapter talking about advertising. We're going to talk about the different types of advertising and the purposes of it. We're going to talk about ways in which you try to assess how effective your advertising was. We're going to talk about how you test for reactions to advertising. And then we're going to talk about targeting advertising to specific demographics or specific targeted markets. This will be a short lecture. It's a nice short chapter, and let's get into it. All right, advertising purposes and types. Advertising is really intended two different things. One, to make you aware of something, or to get you to do something. So if it's to get you to be aware of something, that's more indirect. That's more longer term. It's trying to make you aware so that subsequently later on you'll go and do something. So it is still at the end of the day about you and your dollar, and trying to part company between you and your dollar in return for a gooder service typically. But the immediate point of advertising is either to influence you through additional information so that you're now aware of something, and hopefully have positive emotional experiences with that, have good associations with that, and all sorts of stuff we'll talk about. Or it's like right away that ad is trying to get you to actually click here, follow through, and actually buy. So it's looking to make you aware of a product or a brand or a service or a company, or an image, or hey, through encouraging you or persuading you, buy this product or service, and convincing you of that. So you could have direct ads with click-through, or it could be an informational ad that's really trying to influence future purchase decisions. So hopefully that makes sense. Types of advertising in terms of what are the things the advertisement is trying to do. One is an appeal to a need or a motive. You need a good coat and it's winter. And it'll remind you of winter and how harsh it is, and talk about how awesome their coat is. You're motivated for higher status, or to find a mate, or for whatever. And so that you'll have an advertisement basically trying to tell you that if you buy this product or engage this service, you will achieve greater status, you'll find an awesome mate, or what have you. So all the things you're motivated about, the things that you have goals, the things you want, things you need, the things you're desiring. They're advertisements that are really appeals, trying to get right at that, trying to tap into that, and then hopefully convince you or persuade you to buy their product or service. And another way is sort of an in-group hack, which is to try to get somebody that you have a strong positive associations with, that at some level is kind of a strong in-group, somebody high status in your imagined in-group or real in-group. This could be somebody that legitimately is part of an organization you're part of, or it could be more meta, could be more cultural, which would be like celebrities. Celebrities that you look up to, that you want to be a part of. Aspirationally, you'd love to be part of their in-group and to buy the product they're endorsing. That's sort of a way to act more like that person. The use of influencers and the use of celebrities is, of course, rampant. But you can't just, it doesn't really work to have like a celebrity or whatever we want to the word influencer. Hopefully, you guys are fairly sophisticated in understanding influencer culture, but it isn't just like this is an Instagram influencer or this is a TikTok influencer or whatever. Although that's an apt example because a lot of those people peddle a lot of products, and a lot of times the way they make their money is by getting these products that they then show off on their TikToks or on their posts or whatever. But it really doesn't necessarily typically work very well unless there's some relevance. If it's a beautiful influencer and she's showing something from a fashion standpoint, and the clothes make her look even better. I mean, there's a direct relevance to that. But if it's, imagine that same influencer saying, "Hey, you should buy this supplement to help you with your ingrown toenails." I mean, just out of the blue. That's kind of absurd, but I'm going absurd to give you an example. That wouldn't really be, that influencer wouldn't seem relevant. However, if you're watching, you're older and you're watching cable news, and a movie star that maybe hasn't made a movie in 30 years, but you remember this movie star when you were young, and you have a lot of associations, with your own youth, and you really liked this person, and they say, "Hey, buy Acme ingrown toenail relief." That in and of itself isn't necessarily that impactful. So what you'll usually find when you get these, say, older celebrities targeting, older people, they'll say, "I had the worst ingrown toenail, and my doctor or my friend recommended I try Acme ingrown toenail relief, and sure enough, it took all the pain and discomfort of my ingrown toenail away, and I know it'll work for you and your pain." So those influencers, those celebrities, usually still have to contextualize, even if you have super, in-group associations, status, leadership, aspire to be like them and all of that. They've still got to make their own connection to the product or the service, so that their endorsement is actually a relevant thing. So when you watch like a YouTube video and all of a sudden they stop and give an ad, they don't do anything with that ad to like say why they believe in this particular product. They just say, "And today's video is sponsored by blank. Blank provides X and Y services," and they go right back to their content. It's not very effective. So, and people know this, and usually they come up with a way to make sure that the celebrities or the influencers are talking about their own experience and making it relevant. So hopefully that makes sense. There's also emotional appeals, and this, I mean, these are all related. You might want to have all of these things going on at once, but you can do an emotional appeal that's positive, and you can do emotional appeal that's negative. And so a positive emotional appeal is, "Hey, buy this product and great things are going to happen to you. Buy this product and you'll feel great. Buy this product and all these wonderful things. You'll have all this status. You'll have whatever, all these things you want." And again, that's your appeal to a need or a motive. But what you're also trying to drive is this sort of an emotional response, positive emotional response when you see this advertisement. But you can do negative too, which is if you don't buy the product, you'll never be loved. You won't get invited to the party, or the somebody else will get your girl, or what have you. So you definitely can spin the positive and spin the negative. And you'll see times in which, if you start dissecting ads, you'll see where people are doing both. There's also superiority of the product. So you're looking at a lot of things involved in decision making here, and a lot of them are status oriented, but it can also be practical and goal oriented. But you're trying to establish why your product is superior. This is the best quality. This is the best value. This is the best price. We have the most functions. Ours, work the best. Solves all of your problems perfectly. This is the thing that is the most visible, and everybody will love it. Whatever the dimension is around superiority, that's often an advertisement technique is you're trying to, I mean, we're so surrounded by products and we're so surrounded by, endless consumerism hitting us all the time that you can't just say, hey, I have a product, you should buy it. You have to get to the why, and emotional appeals, talking to need, high status people are using it for good reasons, or this is the best, at whatever dimension. And there's also advertisement. Sometimes it's just designed around trying to get, the trademark scene, trying to get the broader brand associated with this. You might see an advertisement for like a particular make and model of a car, but you might actually see an advertisement just for the make of the car. You might see just a GMC trucks are the best, but it didn't actually have anything, or it wasn't for any one particular GMC truck, because it really depends on what they're looking for, and what, are they trying to sell the product, or are they trying to also sell the brand? Because if you spend a bunch of money on the brand, you can sort of spend less money and more targeted to specific target markets for the various products underneath the brand. And sometimes you're just trying to get that brand out there, spending a lot of money so people are now aware of your brand. And a lot of times there's images, imagistic symbols, and that sort of thing to try to associate your brand, your product, with something good, something positive within your advertisement. And you think of a product image. That's a term that's used. You can think of that kind of like a product's personality. What is specifically unique to this product, to this brand? What do people feel? What do they think? What's the narrative that comes up? What's the associations that come up? What's the emotionality that comes up when they're exposed to your product? And just like when there's a person and you know them really well, they have a unique personality. If you're a marketer and you do a really good job with your product image, people feel that your product is distinct, and they also feel that, and hopefully they really want it, and they feel positive associations, and they want to show and signal that they're associated with it. All those things. But a great deal of energy and money is put into very sophisticated efforts at trying to manipulate. How you envision and what you think of a product's personality with this notion of product image. And then packaging is also a big part of advertising. You're at a store. Certainly, it's a little bit less for online. You're less likely to actually see the packaging online, but in-store purchases, there's often a lot of effort put in just the package, so that the package itself can manipulate you and give you associations and answer your questions and appeal to you and all those sorts of things. So it's trying to reinforce what you might already know, so you're reassured because you came to buy a certain thing, and here the packaging says, I am exactly that thing you came for. Or it's trying to persuade you, hey, I'm actually better than what you came for. Here's why. And then, the use of, when you talk about emotional appeals, you can actually get, deeper than that, and use sex references and use subtle or not so subtle. Look at a perfume ad. Certain advertisement is can be quite blatantly sexual, and sometimes it's much more subtle. But that certainly gets your attention. And it can certainly affect you and persuade you, depending upon the context and depending upon you. It isn't necessarily always a good thing. There are certainly ways in which this can backfire in your efforts. But at least for many types of products or services, having some element of sex appeal is extraordinarily common. Okay, so let's talk about advertising and how do you know if it works? The measurement of it is actually really hard, and it's even harder now than it was when there's only a few different types, and everybody had read a newspaper and watched a couple different channels on TV, and that was it. Nowadays it's very difficult to do. It was difficult then, and it's substantially harder now to really be confident about the effectiveness of your advertising. Yet it's the most important part of a decision of when I add decision, I really mean here your decision as a company to do an ad, to do an ad campaign, to do a marketing campaign, to pay for the development of the ad, the creation of the marketing material, to pay for disseminating it, getting someone to display it for you on a billboard, on the side of a delivery truck, on a banner ad on a website, in a television commercial. Does it work? I mean, that's the thing you really want to know, or are you just burning money in a barrel? And we all understand that, we're surrounded by advertisement, and one of the things we learn to do as humans, we're always sifting through signal and what's noise. I've talked and especially in some of the bonus lectures and a little bit in the regular lectures, that we're these prediction machines, and we're trying to, we're only seeing the things that are relevant, and we actually have a lot of neurocircuitry designed to just ignore stuff. And in fact, the vast majority of things that would otherwise be stimuli is inhibited because we don't have the processing power to take it all in. And our things that we build mental models about, our actual thoughts, our cognitions, are simple things that appear to be metaphorically built around embodied navigation, and it's just not a big enough pipeline to handle all the stimuli. So we're just really good at learning what to tune out. And when we see advertisements, and the first time we might see a type of ad we've never seen before, the very first banner ad that was ever, I'm old enough, to predate the internet, so I experienced the first time I'd ever seen, various forms of advertisement show up on the internet. And I'm sure the first time I saw a banner ad, I probably stared at that thing and went, wow, that's cool. What is this? Oh, hey, that's an advertisement showing up here. But by now, I mean, do we even see them? Or do we see them like flies that we swat away? Just click the X in the upper right-hand corner to make the banner ad go away. So there's a lot of effort to try to push through that in the advertising world. And there's a lot of sort of natural circuitry, sort of natural behavior that we display, designed around like ignoring it all. So, and that can include active avoidance. I mean, one thing is like, I don't even see it. Another is, yuck, ad, skip. I'm going to push, I want to skip through that part. I'm going to not even listen. I don't even like it. Now you're making me mad, so I'm definitely not buying your product because you irritated me. So the whole resistance, the I don't want this ad. I don't want to buy your product. Or hey, you're trying to sell me something. I don't agree with that. Where you actually can actively challenge the argument. Or if you're trying to really change my mind about something and you're not doing a good job of it, but I feel like you're challenging my existing beliefs, trying to tell me that Pepsi tastes better than Coke. Are you kidding? If you have really really good associations, with Coke, telling me that that Pepsi tastes better than Coke. If I'm a Coke drinker, I might react negatively to that, not neutrally. So, there's a lot going on. It's a complex world. Now another sort of nuts and bolts stuff around ad effectiveness and trying to figure it out. There are these companies like the Nielsen ratings and Arbitron. They're these companies that have been around a long time. And they used to just track television viewing. I mean, like Nielsen is a famous thing. You would, I remember years ago, I was selected to be a Nielsen viewer, and you were given this packet in the mail, and you would actually write down what you watched for TV, and then that would be sent in with the other ones that have come from all around the country. And they would put it all together and determine, which network television shows had the most eyeballs and what the age group and that sort of thing, and that would determine advertising rates. Nowadays it's a lot more sophisticated, and it's actually a lot harder. There's a lot more ways to track it, but it's also a lot harder to really get a crux on exactly who's watching what. But they weren't just looking at whether you would look at this particular show on television. They're also trying to pay attention to what ads that you've seen, and that same thing is now adopted to look It's streaming content as well as online content. Whether you even remember an ad can actually be affected by your attitude. If an ad is annoying, or if just being advertised to at this moment in this context is annoying, under some circumstances, actually make you less likely to even remember what the ad is about. Assessing online ad effectiveness, that's really difficult because there's so many other dimensions at play compared to the old days when there's very limited options of what was on like network television, even predating cable, or when barely anybody was watching cable and there was no internet. If you put an ad on in a particular show, you could actually watch sales, the next week and develop some pretty strong correlations and determine whether your ad is effective or not. And as much as we have, this really pervasive, big data stuff where big data knows a lot about each one of us. It's and we get all these very narrow targeted ads. It's actually still really difficult to figure out if they're working or not. It's really the complexity that has come from that the complexity or sort of sophistication that advertising has now, the sophistication of data, seems to be more than dwarfed by the complexity of all the ways in which we can see stuff, and the ways in which the big data doesn't really know, did we pay attention or not? Okay, we clicked on that, but does it know whether we clicked off of it? Does it know who we were? If we're on a computer, or is it somebody else? Anyway, the point is, it's sort of an arms race between people trying to sell us stuff and people trying to figure out whether these ads are effective, and the stuff we look at and the kind of content we consume, also ramifying and complexifying. Okay, another thing is trying to test reactions like this. This is like people specific, as opposed to, did this ad work? You put an ad on a show and you look to see, did people buy more of my cereal? Did the supermarkets order more of our cereal this week now that we put a big ad on I don't know, The Masked Singer or some damn show? This is more this testing reactions. This is more at the individual level, and there's this thing called neuromarketing. The book talks about a little bit. I suspect it's not very big because it'd be quite onerous, but this involves actually measuring brain activity. You can do EEG, you can do MRI, give people ads and actually see what actually happens to their brain. But it's a nascent, it's very new, and it's not not exactly easy or inexpensive. And it's hard to say, yes, there was a reaction, but what was actually going on there? But a lot of times it's surveys. So like you'll see this. You'll watch a YouTube. You'll click on YouTube, and all of a sudden, before you can get the video, sometimes instead of an ad, you'll actually get a little survey question, which will say, what do you know? Which of these products do you recognize, or have you heard of any of these products, or which of these products do you like the best? And you have like little check boxes. You've probably seen that. And like me, you probably just wait the 2 seconds or whatever it is before you can just hit skip ad, or skip whatever it is. But that's essentially a survey where then that YouTube's trying to do that to try to get better data, so that they can have rationale, have data behind why they advertise, why their advertising rates are what they are, and also to get some data on what's effective and what's not effective. So that's just one example of something that you guys have probably seen. That's really a most common means of reacting. It's just finding out ways to ask people, did you see this? There's a more sophisticated stuff where you actually try to get people to, okay, have you seen it? What are your thoughts? You might get asked to be part of like a phone survey, and they might even ask you, they might offer you like a little gift card. We'll send you a $10 gift card if you complete this, and they'll ask you, what's your feelings about this brand, or have you seen an ad associated with, this or that, and how do you feel about it? So surveying is still quite common. Then there's this thing called a sales test, and that's where you you put a targeted ad in and for a targeted area, and that could be like a specific location. You put some billboards up in a particular neighborhood for a particular type of product, and then you look for sales just in that neighborhood. If you're like a company, and you sell things. You say you sell shampoo and you sell it to the Walgreens and CVS's all over the country, and you think you have a super new ad campaign that targeted for a particular group. You might not want to spend millions of dollars and discover it was a terrible campaign. So you might pick a city or pick a couple of cities or even a neighborhood within a city and put some truck signs up or some billboard signs or some banner signs in the subways or whatever, and you can do online advertisement too that's really targeted geographically, and then look for sales for your product, at the CVS, at the Walgreens, in those particular areas as it compares to the aggregate, and see if you see a bump up, and if you do, you get a little more confidence that, hey, my ad's working. And so it's a sales test, lots of ways of doing it, but essentially find a way to create kind of an experiment and a control, and in the experimental group, that's the group you're advertising, and you compare it to whatever you can arguably say is your control, and you're testing to see whether that ad worked, and then you'd scale up from there, or you'd iterate your ad to try to figure out what's really effective. And this was done to great effect in the 2016 campaign. The Trump campaign famously was quite innovative. My understanding, it was Jared Kushner's brother who was part of this Facebook, where they would put ads in, and then they would immediately look to see within particular targeted areas, and then they'd immediately look to see what like the click-through rate was for that, or how viral it became, and then they would quickly change it. And as soon as they got one, hey, lots of people clicked on this, lots of people shared this, certain fraction of people actually went and donated to the campaign, they would then scale that up right away. So instead of having to wait for a week or two or a month or 2 months to see if people are buying shampoo at the CVS to see if your billboards work, some sales tests can give you data almost in real time and let you scale in real time. And so these things aren't just about billboards. And then there's coupons, and this is a little old school, but these things still exist. And that's where you do an ad campaign, and you'd have a coupon associated with the ad campaign, and then you would basically look at how many coupons were actually redeemed. How many times did they take your coupon to the supermarket? And then if you got more coupons than you typically would, and then you might say that ad it was more effective. But devil's in the details on these things, because some people are just habitual coupon clippers, and other times you could actually make your coupon itself more effective than the ad, and you're not really in, like you say you have a 2-for-1 deal on the coupon. Well, okay, people saw your ad, but they went right to the coupon and saw that's a pretty good deal. I'm getting good money there. I'm going to use that, but your ad might have sucked, and their how they feel about your product may not have been changed. But what you did do is tell them, hey, buy 2 get 1 free, or whatever it would be. So it's a little more complicated. All right, now let's talk about advertising to specific demographics, or just specific target markets. I've been talking about big data and big tech, how it can really slice and dice consumer groups across any dimension that can be tracked. And then you sort of tranche that, you sort of cluster that into things that different makers of products and services might care about, that they can target ads to. And when you look at demographics, or you just look at, and more expansive than just demographics, the different ways in which you can group people, you can find that that in many ways different groups have different values. Certainly have different attitudes, and they behave differently. And the easiest way to think about it would be just take demographics for age and sex, and think of a 14-year-old girl and a 65-year-old man. Let's talk about behaviors, talk about values. It's pretty obvious that there'd be ways in which they'd be different. but this is slices in all sorts of different ways. And there you're looking at trying to trying to take advertisement, for a specific slice of a population, and try to tailor your advertisement for what you do know about the values, the behaviors, the attitudes, so they most closely match. So you're targeting ads, not just towards the people you hope to buy, but you're targeting the type of ad. What kind of an appeal? Appeal to need, appeal to emotion. Appeal to a motivation, a manipulation of emotion, a use of an influencer. All those things is certainly different based upon who your target market is. So an example of this would just be, watch some cable news in the evening and see all the prescription drugs ads you get, for ailments that are common for when you get older. So that's like they found the market. And almost no young people watch cable news, regardless of whether it's to the right or the left. Politically, it's not a lot of young people watching these things. So you got an older market, and so one of the things that older people often have is health issues, and so it's sort of a captive market for prescription drugs. You see a lot of prescription drugs, but then start looking at those ads. And ask yourself in the ad, like, what are they selling? What are they displaying? Oftentimes they'll see somebody who's, the first beginning of the ad, my psoriatic arthritis was always bothering me, blankety blank, and there's somebody that you would associate with that seems to be suffering, and then they got this new drug, and now they're barbecuing in the retirement community, and they've got all sorts of friends, and they're happy, and they're smiling, or they're hugging their grandkids, and they're super active, and so it's they're selling the vitality, they're selling there's a fear that you won't be like this, and then there's a positive that, hey, you could have this much more active life, or whatever. Just it's fun to watch, and the drug ads in particular. And ask, like, what is the narrative here? There's what they're saying, but also, like, watch what the actors are doing. One fun thing to do is to put them on mute and just kind of look at what is this? What's the identity they're trying to? I mean, this course is not about advertising and that sort of thing, but I'd encourage you from a psychology standpoint, start looking into that in the way the ads tell stories. And how they try to make it about the story of whoever's viewing an ad is trying to get relevance to their story. But what is it that they're trying to say? How are they trying to manipulate the associations? In some cases, it's direct. In some cases, it's really, really indirect, and it's pretty fascinating. Okay, so targeting of your particular market. Demographically or whichever dimension within big data to cluster groups, it can be a very cost-effective way to increase market share. So say you're doing really well with your beer sales for men, but your particular brand of beer sales for whatever reason doesn't seem to be selling enough to women or college-educated women, from a previous example, and so if you feel that your brand, from focus groups and other stuff, once college-educated women are aware of it, they don't have like negative associations with it. You think this could actually be something. You just haven't reached them. Well, spending money to develop an ad campaign and then spending money to get those ads out just for your slice of target market is a cost-effective way of doing it, as opposed to just getting the ads everywhere and have 90% of the people who will look at the ad not be captivated by the narrative that the ad or whatever identity the ad was selling that was directly aimed for college-educated women. Everybody else that might watch that might be very quickly to just, hey, that ad's annoying, or that ad makes no sense to me. Well, you paid for that. So if you can figure out how to get that ad just for the people that you've designed that for, that's very cost effective. And there's a lot of like business to business companies that literally are there to try to help you get your ad just to the people you want. And then sometimes you want to, you're selling products that are basically products that kids use. And so how do you go about advertising to minors? Well, some of the basic research has said that to some extent, minors are influenced by what their parents buy. They're influenced by like advertisement that they see right around where they're buying, and like in-store placement of products. But one of the things about kids is in like teenagers, they often have their own money, but they typically only spend their own money for things like food. And oftentimes when they're buying clothes or they're buying electronics or what have you, that's often their parents' money. And so that if you're trying to do some advertisements that are directly targeted towards minors, and you're trying to get them to actually part with their money, well, you'd better make sure that that whatever you're trying to sell them is stuff that they actually buy. And if not, well, then you might want to have to look at that ad campaign a little bit differently to try to figure out how to get them to get their mom to give the money so that they buy the shoes or what have you. One of the problems with advertising to minors is how to find them. They typically don't watch traditional media, and it seems like every 5 years some new kind of social media thing pops up that takes maybe it's every 7 years or whatever it is. But I mean, it was it was Facebook, and then it was Snapchat, and then it was Instagram, and then right now we're into this ridiculous TikTok stuff. And probably won't be too long before there's something to come in to dethrone TikTok. But oftentimes it dethrones it by basically taking the younger minds. But there's a lot of people still that use Instagram. There's a lot of older folks that are still using Facebook, and there's a generation in there that still uses Snapchat a lot. And it may be fading or what you use it for and all that, for sure. But there's definitely a moving target here. So how do you reach teens is not something that is like set, and you can often be too late here, because what you're actually doing was exactly right 5 years ago, but now you're burning money in a barrel because you're not actually targeting teens, because those people that were teens, those were teens 5 years ago, and now those people are in their early 20s, and they're not into this particular product, and so you've actually got to find them. And then if you find them, wherever their eyeballs are, you have to figure out whether they'll get some ads in that they're not just going to discard or skip or get annoyed by. The demographics are changing. Not only is the technology that particular demographics might like, which was the example I was giving, changing, but the actual demographics are changing. I mean, the overall like average age is getting older. There's more and more people like over 50, so that market's actually growing. There's other target markets that are growing, and the ability to find them, the strong sense of community, besides just the population as a percentage is growing. So LGBTQ, Muslims in America, people with disabilities are growing. As an example, people over 65, 40% of them have an identifiable disability. And then, some different groups have different aggregate behavior. Some studies have shown that households of LGBTQ people made 10% more shopping trips than other households, everybody else on an aggregate. So they're doing more buying. It matters really where is that 10% going to, and so if you target them thinking that you're going to get a larger you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck targeting that market because they're shopping a little bit more. Well, it's important to know, are those 10% of shopping trips going to your product or not? So the devil's in the details. As an example of some things that maybe are counterintuitive, if you are an upscale restaurant, national chain, or just say a mid-level national chain of restaurant, and you're trying to figure out who to market to, you might think, oh, we shouldn't target people with disabilities because they probably don't come to our restaurants. Well, in one study that more than 75% of people who have a disability dine out at least once a week. So that's not necessarily true. Understanding people's behavior, understanding how consumer behavior shifts, and who makes purchasing decisions. I mean, you watch like a Home Depot ad, and it's kind of funny that a lot of times you'll have like a husband and wife in a Home Depot ad, and the husband's often kind of, ineffectual and can't figure stuff out. And you think, that's probably not a good ad, because, you're making like the guy feel like he doesn't know what he's doing in the ad, and he's probably not going to feel good about that for a Home Depot ad. But you actually look and see that, say maybe the Home Depot is emphasizing like large purchased items, or things that for the garden, or things that improve the home. Well, in some cases, a lot of times, at least with heterosexual couples, the women often drive a lot of decisions, make a lot of decisions about the home. I mean, even if typically a man might do certain types of house construction work or whatever, often it's at the behest of the wife. Obviously, I'm being very, very average here, and it's highly variable in its individual manifestations. But you see these ads where you see couples, and it's a cool thing to watch. Is like who's the competent one in the ad, and if in the ad the woman is like the more competent one, and the man's kind of buffoonish or indecisive, or doesn't have his shit together, so to speak. That's probably for a product decision, purchase decision, that studies have shown were predominantly made by women. And so the actual that even if it might be home improvement, even if it might be lawn care or whatever, there's something that people might associate more with men. Yeah, sometimes the person pushing for it and making the financial decision about whether we can afford a new lawnmower or whatever, oftentimes that's women. So the ads get targeted that way. So real fascinating stuff to look at. And it's very sophisticated, and it's very indirect, and I'm telling you about narratives that drive a lot of advertising sort of decisions. It doesn't make it right or wrong, and doesn't make it good or bad, but it says a lot about what people think about about who makes what decisions and who plays what role when they try to create an ad to manipulate your thinking and manipulate your behavior. So really interesting stuff. Encourage you to look at advertisement with a psychological lens. Look at it critically. If you're stuck looking at ads, at least it keeps you from being bored. Okay, that was the end of the advertising lecture, and the end of chapter 15, and the end of the book. So thank you very much for coming on this journey with me. I hope you found it interesting. We will have one more lecture after this, but let's recap what we talked about today with advertising. So we talked about the purposes and types of advertising. We talked about ways in which you try to assess whether your advertisement is working, whether it's effective. We talked about how typically at an individual level, how you test how people are reacting to an ad. And we talked about how to target advertising to specific target markets, predominantly talking about demographic differences. And then finally, for the next lecture, we will just do a bookend, similar to at the very beginning. We talked about what we were going to cover. Well, this will be a course review where we'll go over sort of the highlights that we covered in each chapter, just to bring some closure. All right, well, I will see you for our last lecture.